Soft late autumn light drifts through the open attic hatch as 17-year-old Mara lifts a dust-fogged box marked "Do Not Open." Inside, a 1993 handset, gray, brick-heavy, rests like a fossil. She laughs, wipes cobwebs away, plugs it in purely for nostalgia. The screen blinks awake, battery icon pulsing improbably. A single voice memo sits in the menu. Mara hesitates, thumb hovering, then presses play. The attic fills with the hiss of analog tape, then her mother's panicked whisper, shaking, tear-thick, confessing that on a storm-drenched January night she exchanged her own newborn with a stranger's girl to shield the rightful heiress from a vengeful crime boss who had already murdered the baby's father. Air leaves Mara's lungs in a silent rush. Dust motes freeze mid-float. She replays the message twice, heartbeat syncing with the looping tape hiss, then descends the ladder slowly, phone clenched like evidence. In the kitchen, her mother hums while chopping carrots. Mara steps closer, lifts the handset. The screen glows between them like a coal. Color drains from the older woman's face. The knife clatters. She staggers, grips the counter, and nods, just once before her knees fold. Later, through choked sobs, she admits the man Mara calls dad masterminded the kidnapping, raising the switch baby as living leverage against the philanthropists whose empire he intended to bleed. Weeks blur, sterile clinic smell, cheek swabs, sealed envelopes. The DNA chart is stark, zero match. Mara's birth parents turn out to be the kindly shelter directors she served beside for months, their smiles now trembling with disbelief and fragile hope. Siblings she never knew she had crowd the doorway, eyes shining with the ache of a miracle that could still be revoked. Tonight the house is too quiet. Mara sits at her desk, sealed test results glowing under the lamp, cursor blinking on an email titled "Press Release." Her finger hovers, the weight of 3 families balanced at the tip. The attic exhales dust as Mara pries the flaps apart. Moonlight slips through a cobwebbed vent and lands on a single shoebox labeled "Do Not Open" in her mother's once crisp scrawl. Inside, wrapped in a yellowed sweater, rests the brick-sized Motorola, antenna stub like a broken finger. She carries it downstairs as though it might detonate, plugs the charger into the kitchen socket, and waits. One green pixel flickers, then another, until the tiny screen blossoms like a resurrection plant. A battery icon pulses. The phone remembers its own name. Mara's pulse answers, drumming at the base of her throat. She scrolls an alien menu, thumb jittery, until she finds the voice memo folder dated 22 Oct 1993. She presses play. The kitchen clock ticks, loud enough to crack porcelain. A hiss of tape, a newborn's distant cry, then her mother's whisper, 29 years younger, soaked in terror, spills from the earpiece. The confession is rapid, breathless. A maternity ward switch, a crime boss's vow to kill the true heiress, a desperate bargain sealed with silent signatures. Each syllable lands like an ice shard, slipping under Mara's sternum. Her knees loosen. She grips the counter edge until knuckles blanch, shoulders folding inward as if to shield the heart that is no longer hers. Blood drains from her cheeks, pooling somewhere colder, unreachable. The voice stops, replaced by the hollow click of the tape stopping. For 3 seconds the room is vacuum-sealed. Then the phone slips, clatters, spins on the tile like a compass without north. She drives without seeing the road, headlights strobing her rigid knuckles on the wheel. The front door yawns open before she knocks. Her mother takes one look at the relic in Mara's shaking hand and collapses, knees kissing hardwood, mouth a soundless oval. Confirmation needs no subtitles. Later, under clinic fluorescence, a technician slides the DNA envelope across the table, plain, white, apocalyptic. Mara's name floats in a font too cheerful for the zeros it carries. The philanthropic couple from the shelter, laughing, do-gooding strangers, appear in the corridor, tears already flowing, arms already open, calling her by a name she has never heard. Tonight the house is too quiet. Mara sits at her desk, sealed test results glowing under the lamp, cursor blinking on an email titled Press Release. Her finger hovers, the weight of 3 families balanced at the tip. The house exhales around her, rafters settling like old bones. Mara's pulse keeps time with the refrigerator's hum, a low metronome of ordinary life that now feels borrowed. On the desk, the envelope's torn flap casts a jagged shadow across the test's sterile verdict. 0% match. The phrase repeats inside her skull, blunt and surgical, severing every bedtime story, every birthday candle, every skinned knee kissed by the woman downstairs. In the hallway, the nightlight glows amber, the same shade that once kept childish monsters at bay. Tonight it exposes them. She can hear her mother's breathing through the thin floorboards, short, deliberate, the sound of someone pretending to sleep while listening for footsteps. 3 decades of lullabies, parent-teacher nights, slammed doors, forgiven curfews, currency spent by a woman who knew the account was never really hers to draw from. Across town, the couple from the shelter pace their own kitchen, rehearsing casseroles of consolation they have no right to offer yet can't keep from cooking. They have waited 28 years for a knock, practicing introductions on stray cats on each other, on the empty air where a crib once stood. Their stationery, crisp and dove gray, peeks from Mara's tote, a letterhead bearing the foundation's logo, 2 overlapping hearts, 1 heartbeat missing. They sign the bottom with the same looping generosity that fills soup bowls every Thursday, unaware the stranger ladling carrots was the outline of their lost tomorrow. Upstairs, the brick phone lies silent again, its tiny green screen dark, yet the whisper still vibrates inside the plastic like trapped lightning. The confession rewinds itself whenever Mara blinks, her mother's 19-year-old voice cracking, the hospital corridor, the crime boss's threat, the split-second barter of one life for another. Each replay adds weight, layers of guilt calcifying around a single moment until it feels geological. Her finger slides from the mouse to the keyboard, trembling, an inch of geography between silence and detonation. 1 click will forward the lab report to the investigative reporter, whose business card has lived in her wallet since college internships. 1 click will splinter the only family she has ever known, will crown strangers with joy, will hand evidence to prosecutors who still keep the kidnapper's file dusty but open. She inhales, tasting plaster, winter air, the copper of indecision. The cursor keeps winking, an impatient witness, counting down a breath she hasn't decided to take. The attic bulb flickers, throwing a pendulum of light across the dust-mottled air. She sets the brick phone on a folded quilt, its antenna quivering like a dowsing rod over buried grief. A thrift store charger, bought on the frantic drive home, bites into the yellowed plastic port. The screen crackles awake, vomiting green pixels that spell a date she has never seen on any family calendar, 08-17-1993. The battery icon pulses, a heart that never learned how to stop. Thumbwheel rotated, menu scroll in blocky courier, inbox 11. She hovers, nail splitting, then presses play. A hiss rises, analog snow, followed by her mother's 23-year-old voice, tight, saliva-starved, barely louder than the furnace downstairs. The confession is a single sentence, but it detonates across the rafters. A swap, a hospital corridor, a stranger's infant passed into the arms that later rocked her to sleep. No names, only the wet click of terror when the message ends. The attic smells suddenly of scorched plastic and amniotic fluid memory. She does not cry. Instead, she descends the pull-down ladder with the phone cradled like a hot coal, each rung a year she has lived on the wrong branch of someone else's family tree. In the hallway mirror, her face looks borrowed. Cheekbones she always credited to Grandma Ruth, now revealed as random inventory. The drive to her parents' house is autopilot through sodium streetlights, the charger cord snaking across the passenger seat, feeding the device that keeps feeding her horror. The front door is unlocked, the kitchen bulb buzzes. Her mother stands at the sink, wrists submerged in suds that smell of rosemary and rust. When their eyes meet, the older woman's knees fold without sound, porcelain scraping vinyl. Facts spill, no hemorrhage. About a midnight abduction, a ransom never delivered, a crime boss who wanted the bloodline extinguished. The man she calls dad had traded babies like casino chips, raising the decoy in plain sight while the real heiress grew up elsewhere, untouched by vendetta. Mom whispers that every birthday candle was a countdown to this moment. Later, at the all-night clinic, a tech twists a buccal swab into a vial labeled with a barcode that feels more legitimate than her surname. 48 hours become a continental drift. When the PDF arrives, the match probability is 0.0, a perfect oval of negation. The philanthropist from the shelter, whose eyes carry her same hazel starburst, are waiting across the parking lot, flanked by two teenagers who share her lopsided grin. She opens the car door but cannot step out. Winter air coils inside her chest like crime scene tape. The attic bulb flickers once, then steadies, throwing a cone of yellow over the half-open box. She lifts the brick phone like a relic, thumb tracing the cracked antenna. The charger, an ancient barrel plug, slides in with a gritty rasp. A red LED stutters, then burns steady. Time inverts. 1993 rewinds inside plastic and nickel-cadmium. One bar appears, then a second. The screen scrolls a greeting she hasn't seen since kindergarten block games. Voicemail icon blinks, tiny and violent. She presses speaker. Static spits, winter wind through a keyhole, then her mother's 25-year-old whisper floods the rafters. Rushed, wet with post-delivery pain, confessing a swap in a corridor that smelled of bleach and gunmetal, how the real heiress had to vanish before the boss learned her name. The message ends with a sob shaped like a question mark. Air leaves the daughter's lungs in one sharp valve. Dust motes hang frozen as if even they are listening. She pockets the phone, knees wooden, and descends the pull-down ladder sideways, each rung a verdict. The kitchen smells of Tuesday pot roast, normal as a lie. Mother turns, dish towel folded at her waist, smile automatic until she sees the fossil handset. The color drains from her cheeks the way color leaves old photographs, slow, then all at once. The daughter doesn't speak. She simply sets the phone on the counter and hits play again. The whisper emerges, smaller yet louder in open space. Mother's hand clamps her own mouth, towel fluttering to the tile like a surrender flag. Denial sputters, wrong tape, wrong woman, prank, hallucination, but the tremor in her shoulders betrays every syllable. Her knees fold, gravity performs the arrest. On the linoleum she curls, a child in an adult skin, and the story spills without prompt. How the man upstairs once wore violence like cologne, how he lifted the legitimate newborn from a bassinet and left the switch baby, her in its place, a human IOU. She had gone along to save the other child, to save herself, to save something. Years calcified the choice into habit. Love grew over it like ivy on rust. The daughter listens, hazel irises ringed with red, pulse hammering at the hinge of her jaw. She drives to the lab the next morning, cheek swab, fingerprint, consent. Results arrive by dusk, 0% maternal, 0% paternal. The philanthropists wait across the lot, breath fogging the windshield, their teenagers clutching handmade welcome signs edged with glitter. She sees her own dimples duplicated in a boy who drums nervous rhythms on a poster tube, sees her cowlick sprouting from a girl who can't stop waving even though she's crying. The daughter's hand hovers above the door handle, winter needling the meat of her palm. Behind her, the muted phone rests on the passenger seat, its red message light still blinking, an unclosed wound. Ahead, strangers who share her blood shift from foot to foot, hope ballooning between them like a held breath. She does not move. She watches the couple through the windshield, their mittened hands clasped, cheeks blotched by cold and tears. The woman, her mother biologically, laughs at something the man says, a hiccup of disbelief that carries across the lot and lands in the daughter's ribs like a thrown stone. 30 years of lullabies, report cards, slammed doors, all rerouted to strangers. The engine ticks as it cools. Each click feels like a countdown she never asked to hear. Inside the shelter, volunteers hang paper snowflakes for the holiday dinner. One drifts loose, plastering itself against the glass, the same lopsided shape she cut in second grade when Mom, no kidnapper, helped zigzag the scissors. Her phone buzzes, the lab's PDF signature line still glowing. Proof, redundant now that the birthmark on the woman's collar mirrors her own. She imagines forwarding it to the family chat. Dad in cuffs, Mom on a gurney, headlines branding them monsters, herself the accidental victor. She imagines deleting it, going home to reheated lasagna and the lie that kept her safe. Between those futures lies only this parking lot, sodium lights flickering like faulty memories. She opens the door, icy air slams her lungs. The couple straighten, hope bright enough to bruise. 3 steps shrink 30 years into pavement. She stops one stride short of their reach, throat raw, words still molten. Around them the city keeps breathing, buses sigh, Salvation Army bells ring, the night indifferent to who belongs to whom. She thinks of the attic box, its warning now a prophecy. Some doors, once unsealed, refuse to close without cutting off a piece of whoever walks through. Her pulse batters every vein, asking for a verdict she can't yet pronounce. And then she lifts her gaze, voice cracking across the distance like winter itself. What happens to all of us if I walk away from everything we thought we were?